right, everyone, welcome back. Here we are with Kevin Perron. And Kevin, please introduce yourself and let everyone know what your company is.
Yeah, I am Kevin Perron, and I'm owner and operator of Treefort Lifestyle products here in Mount Hood, Oregon.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is actually kind of part two of Tree Fort. We had Master Curry on
Oh,
at the
nice,
beginning of this
sick.
year, and I intentionally didn't listen to the episode because I kind of wanted to rediscover the story. Um, so I'm going into this mostly blind. I did a little bit of research about the history of the company, and I bet you I know some stuff will come back up. But yeah, Jeff and I went over this a little bit for all the listeners that are hearing the story again. But I wanted to learn more about you, and I guess we could start with like where are you from and your early life.
Yeah, that's always fun for me to discuss. It's like fun to tell your story, I guess. And where we are, like in the ski world and stuff too, all comes so much from that for me. So yeah, I'm from New Hampshire, Sunapee, New Hampshire. Originally, it's a little small town. We have a ski resort there, and it's like Boston's home mountain, Mount Sunapee. So we're the closest like relatively real mountain with a little bit of vert to Boston, which is really nice. It's kind of like this little resorty town. So a lot of the people who live there are not high class people necessarily, but there is a lot of high class in the area just because of so many vacation homes and all that. So I grew up in this little teeny town, it was like 1,500 people when I was growing up there. And most of the homes in the town were owned by people as their second homes. So our school was super small. I graduated with a class of 37 kids from a public school, which is relatively unheard of. Um, Spent a lot of time on the lakes in the area, a lot of time skiing, was into soccer, and just like mountain biking, skiing, just sports and athletics, wakeboarding, skateboarding, all that good stuff. Um, yeah, my little brother Brady Perrin and we were just kind of a team growing up. So Brady was like really good at skiing, and at that point in time, there was like all these rail jams happening all over the place. And I had my license and Brady didn't. And so I could like grab a car for my parents or whatever, and we could go to these rail jams, and he would always do well. And that really like ingrained us into the ski industry. I mean, right from the start, it was like the first year the Stepp kids ever made a movie. Brady met him at a rail jam, right? And then we just like all became friends and kind of like this little crew at times. um Along with the 4x9 scene, this was all pre 4x9 and pre stepped as well. 4x9 represent,
He's got the hat
um
on.
yeah, man. But yeah, so that was like our real intro to it all, making connections, the whole scenario. I kind of had like a tough time getting through high school and that whole scene. I wasn't like the best student. I tried really hard, but I just had, the quote unquote learning disabilities and all that type of stuff. So I didn't like have good grades and whatnot. When it was time to like go to college, my mom was like really pushing for me to stay in the East Coast instead of go to the West, because she knew I'd just get into skiing and wouldn't go to school. So I ended up staying in Burlington, Vermont, or going to Burlington, Vermont for college with at Champlain. And that was where I met Jeff. And we were just like two of like the real ski kids. There was a couple other more at Champlain at the time, but we like linked super hard through that. And that was actually kind of neat because my brother was a few years behind me. He finished high school and he ended up moving to Utah. And in that time, it separated us, but it really ended up bringing us closer because I was able to just kind of be a 4x9 representative on the East, which was a really interesting scenario. So like, when they first started making movies, they were in Salt Lake. They weren't going to fly to like IF3 because there was no budget. There was no anything. They were just kids with a camera. So I was like the 4x9 guy who would go to IF3 for them, or, all these stupid things, which was really neat because it just created all these connections. And yeah, so that's kind of like my growth and come up. I'm sure there's like a lot more depth that we could go into, but basically Yeah, that's it.
Damn, I mean, getting exposed to the ski industry by Stepped and 4x9, that is just an incredibly strong start.
Right, but they weren't even industry then. They were just
Yeah,
kids with a camera. They're like, well, we're thinking about making a movie, and Fortnite wasn't anything at that time. Stepp was like just barely like had a name maybe, and they didn't even have an edit out at that time. So it was just like, hey, you want to hold the camera? We'll film you, and you film us, and that type of scenario when that started. And that was more with Brady. That was like the first time that they met, and then from then on it ended up being really, really cool for me because, like I said, I was in Burlington. Everybody was out on the West Coast, or not coast, but yeah, Stepp was in Colorado. 4x9 was in Utah. And like Vermont Open used to happen at Stratton back in the day. So Stepp would like get me a media pass, right? And I'd like hold the camera. It was crazy, dude. Like the year that Wallish's Super Unknown came out in that like full Burton suit and stuff, it's like if you watch the Stepp movies, I'm hyped because my job at Vermont Open was pretty much to follow around Wallish with the camera. So I like filmed a whole bunch of the Wallish segment. And, yeah, it's just cool how it all like comes in.
absolutely. And so, yeah, you mentioned that the rail jams were huge for your younger brother. So, what were the rail jams at the time? Like, was that pre Rails to Riches? Like, what was the scene at
Yeah.
at the time?
Yeah, it was actually pre-rails to riches. Stratton would have like 3 rail jams a year. Mount Sunapee would have one. You'd have one up at Waterville. You'd have one. There was just like each resort would kind of put one on. Sometimes a shop would have one in like their parking lot. But you could, within like a 3-hour driving range, I'd say you could like every weekend find, maybe every other weekend find something like that to do. That it really just was nice, man, because it took you out of being around people who like ski but aren't like fully in, and it put you only with the people who are fully in. And it's just so crazy how many of those people who you'd end up at the same rail jams with together all the time are still in it.
Yeah. And I think that, like, that experience is lost a little bit. I think that Tell a Friend tour does a good job of that now. Because even
Yeah,
when it comes to Ski Sundown, I'll still stop by, even though I'm probably one of the older guys there. Um, but it's just great because you're just fully around people that are super into it. Same thing when you go out to like X Games, and you're
right.
around the right crowd. Obviously, there's a crowd there that's just the party, but you go out to Mount Hood in May, you're around those same people. So yeah, getting
Exactly.
exposure to that is huge.
It's really really similar to that. It's really like coming to Hood
Yeah.
in May. Because yeah, everybody comes from their own places, and yeah, a lot of people come from Salt Lake, but it's like kids from Montana, kids driving from Vermont and Maine, like all those people who end up here are like the ones who obviously put the effort into it. And yeah, they're gonna stick around probably because they're putting that effort in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
it's
how
really
did
cool.
so you and Jeff Curry met at Champlain. What do you remember how you guys met?
um I think there's a little bit of a difference in our stories because I feel like I met him. I'm pretty sure I met Jeff bef- like a week before school started for him. Jeff's a year younger than me, so I was already in college, done my freshman year, and I think I went back up to Burlington early that year. There was a rail jam in Burlington, and it was like in the summer style, like out of a cooler style snow. And I remember Jeff doing like a backflip or something onto the rail. It was just like something crazy. Um, and I think I like met him there, but then no, it was just more like walking by each other basically. And Champlain's a small college too. So like you clearly walk by the line skier kid because he was like connected and had all the gear on. And it's like, oh, that kid's into it. And in a small school like that, just didn't take long. I think we said hello to each other in passing once, and then probably ended up just in classes together, I'm pretty sure. And automatically we were in like the same group. You know what I mean? It was like we were we were building business plans together in different classes. And I think we were in like a same group like 4 different times in college, like building businesses or yeah, creating some type of marketing plan or something. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. So what were you guys doing for skiing? Were you guys did you guys like go out and film each other? Were you just riding for fun? Like, were you trying to make a career in skiing even before this business?
No, not at all. Actually, Jeff was like really good, and he's so damn talented. Like, it's crazy to watch that kid ski. His fundamentals are just out of control, bolts every time. I was just like loving it, and I loved being involved in it, and I loved the ski and snowboard scene. I didn't really have any. I wasn't filming at that point in time. Only when I would like be helping Stepped out, I would like be holding the camera for them. So I wasn't like filming Curry, um, and no one was filming me either. I mean, there was a little crew that I was like semi involved with, and Jeff was probably a little bit more involved with the Skrilla Squad, and I think they made like a couple edits and stuff during the college days, but I was not like super involved with that or super involved with filming. I just literally skied for fun at that point in time. And yeah, but really felt like involved in the community. So that I think is like the like interesting thing. It wasn't out of like my skill and ability level. It was like through connection making and like downright good friends. It was crazy.
Yeah. Quick question about Stepped. Were they when they were younger, were they as sketchy as their movies made them seem like their movies made them seem like criminals that were,
No, yeah,
no.
no, they're really nice. Like, I mean, they're the type of dudes you can introduce to your mom and dad, and they're like, oh, they love them. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I think once they got to Colorado and like really got into filming, I think they were really smart about how they played it. Actually, as I look at life now, I think about how if you want to like be something in terms of like regarded by the people, I think you have to take your whatever your personality is and times it by 10 and just make it absurd. So I think they were really good at embellishing what they already did to make it look more like dramatic. And I think that's really, really cool because it definitely lets you feel it. It doesn't make it feel like it's a mundane thing that they're hitting this handrail. It really feels like they're breaking into some shit. And it's like kind of that is what they were doing technically, but it's
Yeah.
like in the end, it's not really what the vibe is like, and it's not really, I don't know, the scene necessarily. But I don't know either because I wasn't there once they went to Colorado. Like I wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you made it through college. Was there any inkling of a business with Jeff at the time, or was that well after?
Yeah, that was well after actually. It's kind of funny. Because to me, I just love looking back on things so much, and it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it was very much we were just going to business school. Yeah, I knew I wanted to make a business. Like we both talked about like kind of what we wanted to do, and it wasn't like, what do you want to do? Maybe we could like work it in together. It was just like, I think it would be cool to like own a ski shop someday or something in the ski industry. And like that got us in our groups. We built like a one ski shop that was like it was called La Creme or something like that. And the idea was like it was a ski shop in the summer and an ice cream shop, or a ski shop in the winter and an ice cream and skateboard shop in the summer or something like that. And it's just like dumb ideas, like having fun and coming up with things. But it was interesting because we like worked together prior to working together, which is a really cool thing. And um, yeah, we had like just different variables with different groups throughout the whole time and different people in those groups, sometimes the same people too. But no, we didn't ever like think about working together. I think that just kind of like really naturally fell into place. And that story is just like super cool to me too. Like, and I'll just speak it if you want.
Yeah,
Like,
you can get straight into it if you'd like. Or I mean, where did you end up after college? I feel like is an important
oh,
part of the
okay, yeah,
story.
we'll
Yeah.
keep it a little bit more timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after college, I was stuck because I knew I wanted to move to the skiing. And I was like, do I go to Colorado where the whole Stepp crew is? And they're like a lot of my friends, and a lot of my friends like ended up linking with them all as well. So it wasn't like just Nick and Alex who we were friends with, but it was like, yeah, their crew got bigger, and a whole bunch of kids from Vermont who ended up in Boulder were also a part of their crew, and that type of scenario. So I was like, either stepped or I go to Salt Lake, which is where my brother was and where 4x9 was. And that was just kind of like a natural move for me. And I decided that, I don't know, it's probably like before the end of my senior year, I want to say, of college, I decided I was going to go to Salt Lake after. And it actually worked out really cool because one year when I was being 4x9 representative at IF3, I'm like in this packed hallway, and me and Andrew Holson, are just like the only two kids on the East Coast from 4x9. So we're standing there in this packed hallway and we're really stuck, and like the crowd kind of situates and moves a little bit. And then like Tanner Hall's standing right in front of us, right? And the whole time driving up, Holson's like, Tanner Hall's going to be there. Like, he's like, I don't even smoke weed, but man, if Tanner Hall's there, I might have to smoke with him or something. He was like that excited about like meeting this dude. And like literally all of a sudden he's like right in front of us. And I look over and Holson's just like kind of like tight, and I was right away, I'm like, hey, Tanner, my name's Kevin. I'm here with 4x9 Productions. And I heard you were skiing with Henrik. And all of a sudden he just grabs me and just like pushes people out of the way, dude. And just like, we head right up to like the VIP zone and got the introduction to Iberg, Tanner, and just like that whole scene. It was really, really wild. So that leading back into it was just really cool because I had already decided to move to Utah, and Tanner's like, I live in Park City, man. We got to hang out, and I'm like, this is insane. Like, I'm not a pro skier. He doesn't know this, but I'm not a pro skier. And he's like down to hang out, it was like the craziest thing. So that was like probably a small, another like little thing that just like fed into me going to Utah. I moved to Utah, and man, I was just like blown away going there. I had a friend from there who set me up with a kid that I like had met before, Henny. And Henny was from Vermont, and he lived at this house that had an open room. So he's like, oh, we've got an open room. You should come live here. I end up pulling in, and it's just like, before even getting in the house, it's just like F-350s and big trucks with sled decks and snowmobiles on top of them. And it was these dudes, Kyler Cooley and Dylan Natal's house. And they're just like, they were like powder gods at that point in time, and it was just like moving into a dream. It was crazy. So moved into that house. My brother's house in like one of like the 4x9 kind of crew house was just right up the street. And then there was another like 4x9 house that was down in like the university kind of zone, sugar house kind of zone. So that was just really neat because we kind of had like two crews and kind of went back and forth between the two spots and had a blast living in Utah. Got to, fulfill a lot of the life dreams. That's kind of crazy because, you just kind of like, I always had all these dreams about going out there and like what it could happen. And it's just like within a few years, they were all fulfilled. It's like kind of had to make some new dreams up in a way, like, where am I going now? Like, literally got invited, like the first time Tanner hit me up, I was just slaving in this warehouse at level 9, working super hard and grimy conditions. And that was like when they had first started. So it was just this scene, right? And I'm like grinding super hard, and my phone starts ringing, and it's Tanner, and he's like, hey, we've got a pipe shoot tonight. You should just pack your car with a bunch of homies and come and hang out. And we get to end up getting up there, and it's like the pipe is at night and it's lit up with Rasta colored lights, and it's just insane. And Tanner's we're smoking spliffs at the top. Tanner's like pulling in, grabbing a spliff out of our hands, smoking it, and then just dropping in and doing a dub 12 like it's nothing, 20 feet out of the pipe. But it's really cool because, back to like dreams, it's like, it was just so cool. It turned into a cover on Powder Magazine, and it's like an all black cover with, Tanner lit under these like Rasta lights in the half pipe. But like for me, I love the idea of like being somewhere when something extraordinary or something like really memorable happens, being able to witness that, I think is like really incredible. So that was just one right away. I was like, no way. I met Eric Seo and watched him take a photo of Tanner. Like, to me, that was just some like legendary stuff, you know? So yeah, Utah was just mind blowing, dude. Like, met so many awesome people, created so many friendships, got out in the backcountry on the side of homie snowmobiles, and like, yeah, just insane. Video premieres, like it just went off. It was crazy.
Yeah, how were those 4x9 video premieres, especially since you were kind of part of the crew?
Dude, actually it's crazy because I didn't mention this, but back east, when they first started, they would have them in the fall back east. And the first year of the 4x9 premiere, I think, was in the IMAX movie theater in Boston.
Holy crap.
It
Yeah.
was insane. And I think that was with Stepp too at that one. So that was like really, really neat. And then yeah, and then 4x9 premieres were really, really cool, no question, in Salt Lake. But I gotta say, like at that time, 4x9 was very so level one scene was like insane then. It was like popping. And it was like right when Wallace got on there, and like, you know, a quarter probably of that level one crew was in Salt Lake. So it's like Ahmet and Wiley and all those guys. And it's like I was living at Wiley's house one year type of thing. So it was just like real crew oriented and so damn fun, man. You know, just to have those scenes and have so many people show up, and the whole like trying to get free wristbands and all this dumb stuff that you look back on, it's like not that cool, but at the time you thought it was like, you're like, I am so involved. I'm standing next to Josh Berman right now, you know, like it was just crazy.
That's so sick. How did you guys feel at the time, like kind of level one and all these big production companies poaching one of the guys from your crew, and for a large portion of the year he's gone not filming with you guys, he's filming with somebody else. Like, did that make the dynamics weird at all, or like did it kind of take away from the quality of your guys' movies?
I don't know. I can't really like speak to that too much because Four Minds like kind of my friends and not necessarily like I was like a real part of it. But at the same time, like everybody was a real part of it because it was small.
Mhm.
But no, it only boosted everything. I think in the end, you know, there's I don't know what it's like necessarily now, but there was like no beef drama feels between anything then. It was just like everyone's trying to make as much as they can in terms of content and like putting stuff out, and any opportunity over here is an opportunity for over here. And I think it got the 4x9 movie scene a lot more. I think, yeah, I don't know, but it wasn't the difference. I think is level one was like probably pretty pro in the sense of like they had budgets, they needed to fulfill things. 4x9 was just going to Park City and like building jumps in the side country. It wasn't like a real deal mission. So it wasn't like you were getting taken from. It was almost like, dang, our guys made it. I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's like it's like the definition of a rising tide raises all boats. Like everyone
100%.
was lifted up by these guys getting
100%.
lifted up. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really really neat. And then like, yeah, coming back to like a level one premiere in Salt Lake when one of the crew is like in it, you know what I mean? It just makes
Yeah.
it so fun to like celebrate and like see what he's done in the big leagues in a way, even though you're like partying next to him the whole time, or you know, around each other the whole time. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, but I mean really really cool. And it kind of happened for a couple of the guys in a way. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely neat at that time.
I gotta ask, and I always bring him up. What was Steve Stepp like as a college kid?
Oh man, he was the goblin, dude. It's so funny. He's just like, you could just always tell he's so damn intelligent. And I think that's what's so funny about him is his like weirdness, and his energy overpower his intelligence to most people. But when you like really start sitting back and watching him, it's like, holy shit, this kid is like really smart, you know?
Yeah,
So I
that's
think that
awesome.
was like really funny and really cool. And that was a neat thing about the whole scenario actually, is like every one of those guys was going to college, you know? So it was like, wasn't like just be a bum in Salt Lake and go skiing. It was like they were all going to school. They were all super smart, and maybe even without tons of effort, they were doing things that like naturally helped them, like creating a persona and sticking behind that. And like obviously Steve has ran with that one, you know.
More than
Um,
anyone, arguably.
yeah, for sure. But there was also this like interesting split too. So one house like where my brother lived was like Colin Collins, Brady, Whit Foster, our buddy Ryan West, Jeff Kiesel, and like that kind of crew. And then there was a frat house actually for a little while in 4x9, and that was like a party house. So it was kind of like this joke where it's like, oh, kind of all the spliff smoker dudes are out here, and kind of like the heavy partier dudes are out here. And on party nights, we all went over there. And on like after skiing or whatever, we're probably like bouncing on the trampoline in the backyard at Whit, Colin, and Brady's house, you know?
Yeah.
And I was more on that side of the Whit, Colin, and Brady scene, and not as much of like the Wallish and Steve and AJ and Napier side. But the interesting part is just being friends with Napier and AJ before they ever moved there. And those guys are 4x9. They aren't the skiers in it, but they are 4x9. So at that point in time, yeah, there Steve wasn't my best friend, we'll put it that way. He's like a really awesome person and a homie, but like I just ended up in this like small other crowd a little bit more, I think, you know.
Yeah, totally. And the reason I asked is just because the fans love him so much, and people just
Dude,
can't get enough Steve Stepp content.
I can't get enough either. It's hilarious just because you never know what's gonna come out. You know what I mean? And like, oh man, I just like it's so funny. That kid makes me laugh out loud on like an Instagram thing all the time. But it was like the other day, it was like Jesper slid that super long rail right and broke the Wallish's thing, and Steve had a post on his Instagram and it's just only text and it says, can someone please send me Jesper's address? I just want to ask him a few questions. You know, it's like, oh my God, dude, this kid is so damn funny. And I was like almost crying, laughing, just reading this thing because it's like, you're like, I have no idea what's going through his mind, but the three things that come to my head of what's probably going through his mind are all hilarious, you
Yeah,
know?
that's
Like,
funny.
dude,
So
that kid is awesome.
yeah, so what were you doing for money at the time? You mentioned you were working in a warehouse.
Yeah, so level 9 was like a ski shop. It is a ski shop. Level 9 Sports, you probably know about it. Um when I first started there, they were pretty strictly online. They had a small retail store and they just bought overstock of products and hustled it hard at cheap prices. And when I started, I just started like packing boxes and shipping stuff for them. And we were in like an 8,000 square foot warehouse, which, you know, is pretty sizable. But like 2 years or 3 years into working with them, we moved into an 80,000 square foot warehouse. So like I went with them through this crazy growth phase. Like they worked hard for, I think, like the 5 years before I was there from the start to get to where it was when I started. And I was just a minion, but it was just really cool to watch it really, really grow from nothing to something and over double. And then, yeah, finding that big warehouse and how the owners dealt with it and mitigated risk and all these type of things. But it was really cool to kind of get in then where I didn't have the title of like warehouse manager, but was very, very involved because I had been there through all these changes. And that was actually really, really cool experience for me because when we went from small spot to big spot, the company expanded massively. And I was a pretty good worker, you know, I'm just like good old New Hampshire boy who just puts his head down and grinds. And, you know, they're like, you got any friends like you know? And I was like, oh, I'll get some good workers in here. And I think I got like, oh man, my buddy Sam. I don't know. I got a couple friends in there and then it just started spawning. And it wasn't just me, actually, too. One of my buddies from college, Dan Mason, we both moved out together to Utah, or we drove out together to Utah. And like the day that I started working for Level 9, I found out that Dan started yesterday for Level 9, but he was at the retail store. And what that kind of set up, oh, and this is fun too. He worked with Chuck Mumford at the retail store, who now owns Pit Viper, right? And that's a whole crazy one. And Chris Garson, who also owns Pit Viper, worked for Level 9 too. But Dan and Chuck were like running the retail store. And so as we expanded, they started hiring people on that end. And then on the warehouse side of things, started hiring people. So I got a few of my buddies in there. And then one of them became like the manager of customer service. So then underneath there, it just grew to a bunch of friends. And it was so cool, dude. At one point, like Level 9 was like taking us, and they still do this. They'd bring you on like cool little company trips or whatever. But it was all squad. Like it was just like our homies. And we're all like belaying like 80-foot waterfalls into like Zion or something. You know what I mean? It's just like, what? This is so cool how this culture like all came together. And yeah, so that was what I was doing mostly for money. And you know, it's like off in the summer kind of deal. I learned about unemployment. I didn't understand unemployment, you know. I never did it. I actually came back to like Level 9 one year, and they're like we're giving you a little bonus, bigger bonus this year than the others, and it's because you're the only one who hasn't taken unemployment this summer. And I was like, I could go on unemployment. You know what I mean? Like I had no idea. I was like literally going and getting like a job cutting vegetables at like a salad spot, you know what I mean? Like doing nothing for jobs type stuff, which is awesome, and it's taught me a lot. But yeah, just those type of things. Kind of everyone was on like summer vacation, and I'm like grinding, trying to find things to do, you know. It's pretty funny.
That is funny. So so in my research about the origins of Treefort, I see two different stories. So did it, did the company start while you were still in Salt Lake, or did it start while you were in Mount Hood?
No, I was still in Salt Lake.
Okay, so yeah, let's hear your story because I'll tell you the other one that I read online.
Perfect. Yeah, this is always fun because it is a little bit confusing, and it depends on where you start with it too. And so Jeff and I have like always kind of gone back with and forth with like, where did it start? When did it start? Like what's our official days and spots? But the story, everyone can just take it from the story, I guess, and you can kind of decide from your own. But the story is that like on Thanksgiving 2011, Jeff was up here working at Wendell. So after college, he graduated. He ended up getting the head coaching job here in Mount Hood at Wendell's. And all the kids would go home, you know, for Thanksgiving. And he's like, I'm not going to fly to the East Coast for 3 days. Like, it's stupid, you know? And there's also nobody here in Welch's. Like, this is kind of a ghost town. I don't know if you've ever been up here, but it's pretty, there's nothing really here. So he didn't have any like crew here. And he's like, he did it for 2 years in a row. Just I'll drive down to Salt Lake, hang out with Kevin and the crew, and have Thanksgiving with them, then drive back up, you know? And so the official story for me of Treefort is we're like finished Thanksgiving dinner. We actually had it at our house, at my house at the time. And at that time, it was the old Saga house. So it's where Saga started, which is also kind of an interesting one because Saga also started at Mount Hood kind of too with the Wendell scene. But literally like almost identical-ish stories. You know, you got the Saga house, they moved out, we ended up moving in a few years later. Where they had their offices was my bedroom, and it was like this huge basement room. We all like kind of drew straws, and I ended up with the big basement room. And so that was where we'd all smoke and stuff and whatnot. So like after Thanksgiving dinner, we're like downstairs in the dungeon hanging out in my room, which is the old Saga offices, having our doobies. And we just ended up talking about how crazy it is that everybody has their own little style of suspenders going, and people like Wallish are like getting paid by the North Face, you know, to wear all this out like nice outerwear, and then they open up their jacket and it's like duct tape and shoelace suspenders holding their shit up, and it's like, all right, everyone's got a chest strap going across, so when you sit on chairlift, your straps don't come off. I had a problem as a short guy, like the adjusters on suspenders would always end up on my shoulders, and that means I couldn't wear my backpack to go in the backcountry with the suspenders, so I'd have to take my suspenders off, and I hated that. I loved wearing my suspenders. So that was like a big thing, like how to change the adjustment. And then, yeah, so I'd say those were like the two main things, but in doing that, we changed the adjustment, which allowed the third main thing, which was the clip to be removable, which is awesome because you can replace it, and also awesome because you can totally take it off, go around the belt, and not have any hard pieces on you at all, which is really key. So we just started talking about that idea, and how it probably could be fixed. And, you know, Jeff's sitting there with a notepad, like sketching, you know, and he's sketching this whole thing up, and like a bunch of us are just like putting ideas down. We're like, all right, if you do loops here, then you can put the chest strap on, and how do those loops interact with this? And then the can Velcro work and whatever. And next thing you know, we had a drawing. And at that point, I just like remember so vividly, like Jeff looking over his left shoulder at me and being like, dude, these are good. We've got to have a name, you know? And right then it really felt like something like everybody in the room wanted them already, you know? And it was basically like Jeff and I like talking about it, and we're like getting really serious, and I could see everyone else kind of like stepping back a little bit. And we're like, does anyone else want to be involved in this? Like, you guys want to, like, let's do this, you know? And my buddy Sean was like, all I want's a pair of suspenders, you know? And Sean actually has the original first ever prototype or whatever. And then Brady was there. Can't remember who else was really there. I know Brady and Sean. My buddy Sam was there. Luke Perron, he used to live with us. Yeah, but we just had a little basement crew going on, and everyone throwing their ideas in. You know, we ended up with this design, and yeah, from there it's just like quickly mentioning it to some friends. My buddy Dylan Ferguson, I don't know if you know that name, but he's an old 4x9 ski kid. He was into sewing a little bit at the time, and he's like, I've got an extra $30 sewing machine, you can just have it. So he gave that to me, and next thing you know, I'm like ripping Velcro off of like whatever I had, man. You know, it was like stripping down shin guards and going to the is it the DI? Yeah, Desert Industries. Going to the DI and finding anything with Velcro on it, like just sewing it onto elastic that we got. And anyways, we made them super friggin' long, and that was like the whole thing, to have them long enough too. And yeah, no hard pieces, different adjustment, chest strap. And so that was like the story. And then now we're living in two different places. Jeff drives back up to Mount Hood, Oregon. I stay there, and we just keep doing our own thing, communicating through email and whatnot, you know? But it was kind of like the same business in two different places. So that's where it gets kind of confusing. And a lot of people who live here only know it as a thing from here. But it's like, it literally, to me, started in Salt Lake. Now the scenario is to bring back the confusionish part is when we register the business, we registered it here. So there was nothing that said that it was in Salt Lake. Like Jeff registered the business in Oregon. And at that point it's an Oregon business. And at that point we're a real business because we're registered. So when people ask when it started, I'm like, Thanksgiving 2011, but that's like the concept of the business. That's not necessarily the business, but we sewed things from 2011 until 2013 when it was registered, and we both kind of did our own thing in two spots.
Yeah. What was the inception of the name?
I had an old business plan wrote for Treefort rolling papers. Actually, that was the original idea, and I just had all these like funky ideas of different rolling papers that you could do. And then when I started really like looking into that, it was really absurd to start that type of company. You needed tons of capital and overhead. And so I just kind of tabled it. I have like a little idea book, we call it, where it's like all the ideas you get, you got to like write them down and at least like kind of save them somewhere. And so it just kind of stayed in that book, and then literally when Jeff looked over his shoulder and was like, we need a name for this, I was like, I've got a name.
That's
And
sick.
so that came, we'll go a little deeper if you want. And that came from the idea of me trying to figure out names. And I was like, well, what do you do when you roll a spliff? I was thinking you flip it or you twist it. And the F from flip and then OR. So F or T, flip or twist. And then I saw the word fort, obviously. I wrote it and I was like, Treefort, that is it. And I got so fired up on that name. And so that was like the original behind the scenes idea. When I brought it up with Jeff, it just really fit in everything that we were going for, and we decided to add lifestyles onto there because we didn't really want to be a ski specific brand. We really wanted to be like what we as skiers do in our lifestyle outside of on the mountain, so like we're always doing weird shit and like have our own style and not afraid to walk in the grocery store looking like a goon to normal people. But to us, we're like thinking we're cool, So I just thought that there was like tons of room for us to be able to contribute to the rest of the world with a skier's mentality is really what the lifestyle idea kind of comes from. And yeah, and then we had everyone was either like sponsored by these we just didn't want to compete with these brands. We really wanted to like work with other brands, and have them help us maybe and all that type of stuff. So yeah, yeah, that's
That's
that.
that's a great story, dude. So the one
Yeah.
I saw online, I believe it's like a blog written on the Treefort website. Jeff says that it was that it all started when you came over his house with one of the travel trunks, like a prototype of the travel trunk. So
Interesting.
yeah, so where does that like how does that story play into everything?
Yeah, so that is a whole nother scene actually, and this gets super fun for me. So we were living in the Saga house, or what was the Saga house. The basement floods, right? And um yeah, the basement floods, we all get evicted, not in a bad way, but just like they got to fix the house. I had just gotten shoulder surgery, so I'm like 2 days out of shoulder surgery, like pretty stuck, and have no idea like where I'm gonna go. My friends figured some stuff out, and I was, I mean, we all figured it out in a matter of 3 days. We were out of there pretty quick, but I got so lucky, dude. And Tanner was like, what do you mean you don't know where to go? He's like, I got a room for you at my house. So I moved into Tanner's house in Park City. It was like the most insane thing. He gave me a room for a while for free, and then Iberg ended up moving out, and then he gave me an office for Treefort for free too, which was just like such a blessing, dude, to have a year of unpaid rent. And it was just like probably the most supportive thing that anyone's ever done for the business. Like, and he didn't even really think of it as that, but to me, that's like all I think of it as. He was just like, yeah, Kevin's got nowhere to go. Like, I got a room and I'm not even gonna be here most of the year, So he's just like being so homey like that and really hooked it up. So we had built the suspenders at that point in time. I don't think we had registered the business at that point in time yet. And I ended up moving up there, and then get really involved with like the Inspired family. That was also like a big part of my crew once I ended up linking with Tanner. And that was really fun too, because we were kind of like able to mesh all of those little groups of the 4x9 and Tanner, and like we almost had him in a movie one year, which was like for an movie company to like have a Tanner Hall segment would have been epic. And it just didn't work out, but he really wanted to, and they wanted to, and just fun things like that. So that's what I love too, is making connections. And you know, I feel like a lot of people felt like he was like maybe out of their league or something, but it's like, no, I'm no one, and I'm friends with them. Like, you guys are skiers, you should be friends too. But anyway, so I'm living up there, and I ended up doing the Inspired demo tour. I don't know if you know what that is.
Oh, I remember that. I was probably an early teenager at the time. Yeah.
Did you go?
No, but one of my buddies did. Shout out Jay Burrows. He says it like changed his life.
Sick. Yeah, so the Inspired demo tour was so cool too, because Iberg and I were like living at Tanner's house. He got to like have faith and trust in me, and he couldn't go on the demo tour. I believe he might have been like, him and his girl might have been pregnant or something like that, and he couldn't do the demo tour, right? And he's like, Kevin, you're the only one that I trust to do it. So I was the manager of the Inspired demo tour, which was really, really cool. One of the better experiences of my life. You know, it makes me like family with Phil and Henrik and all these guys, and yeah, Paul and Stojan. My brother came along for a while. It linked me more with like Inspired Tanner and Iberg, which was really cool.
Was Henrik on that tour
Um,
too?
what's that?
Was Henrik on that tour?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
insane, dude. That was the year of the nose butter triple. So he like came back with gold medals. Going like, he left in the middle of Ohio, like dude, PVC rails at like resorts and stuff, like nothing, and no kids showing up to ski with us or anything. I can't wait. I actually have a bunch of footage of him and I just like cruising this little hill in Ohio, and I want to make a little cut of it because it's like the last spot that he rode before going to X Games. Man, it was just like such a crazy thing for him to leave the flattest spots, go do X Games, win a bunch of shit, and then come back to the flattest spots like with the medals, and everyone's just like so hyped, and he's so hyped. And it's, yeah, there's just so many things to be said about him and that mentality, and that like it's for him, but he's still like giving back to the people so much, dude. It's like he could have been doing so many crazy things that year, but instead he's like literally going from like superstardom right back into the van, dude. And it was like ghetto life a little bit, you know, there wasn't much of a budget or anything. So yeah, like way cool experience, and built such a good relationship with those guys. And then it's just like, I gotta say, like, that kid is so wild, man, because in the van, sometimes you'd be like, damn, is Henrik sleeping, you know? And just like, you like poke someone and be like, is Henrik sleeping? And all of a sudden he'd just sit up and he'd be like, nope, you know? And he's just like totally wide awake, and he's just in his head dreaming. So my theory is he was doing nose butter triples the whole time, laying down in the van between these two seats. He's just visualizing and visualizing. And yeah, that's how that all happened in my personal opinion. But that was crazy.
Dude, so many rabbit holes that I never would have expected from you. I thought, this is crazy, and it actually explains why Inspired Media submitted a viewer question for the end. So we'll get to that later. But
Oh, sick, no way.
I had no idea you were so involved with all of this. That's incredible.
It's kind of fun, man. It's like really a unique way to approach a brand build, you know, because for me, this whole thing is like very community oriented. It's not about the product necessarily. The product is what creates it and allows a thing to like bring everybody together. But in the end, it's really just like straight community build. So yeah, every time if you see like on our Instagram or whatever, people who are promoting these people aren't our team. They're just friends, dude. And it's so damn cool that we get that support from these type of people. And hopefully we're giving something back to them, but it's not like we're giving them paychecks, and I think that's a bummer, but also beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, totally. So how did you so you're living with Tanner of
Oh
all
yeah.
people. Yeah, like how did you end up getting to Mount Hood? I don't know if there was a lot of steps in between, but
All right, well, we got to go back to the traveler's trunk. So this is where this whole thing
okay,
is
yeah.
kind of coming. We do the Inspire demo tour year. That was awesome. Um, yeah, had a blast, met a ton of people who I've re-met all over the time, or yeah, over these times in life since then. It's been so crazy. But after that whole thing, Tanner had an invitational. He did the Tanner Hall Invitational. It was at, I don't know, somewhere in Tahoe. So we went to Tahoe for the Tanner Hall Invitational. And for some reason, man, the night before that, I just kept thinking about all these little concepts that kind of just seemed to be one thing to me. And that was the traveler's trunk, which was our little bag. It's like,
It's the bag that everyone sees on Instagram. Yeah, it hangs around
right,
the
right.
neck.
That's our main go-to thing, right? So the scenario with that was three things kind of at level 9. I pretty much made one of those out of cardboard so I could have my phone hanging from my neck and have the cord from the cell phone go up to my ears and not have it be like all the way through all these pockets and whatever. And I could also have my pens, my markers, all these things I need to keep myself organized in the warehouse. Um, so that was one. Another one was Henrik had a passport holder that was just falling apart and stacked full of stuff. And he would have his little trinkets that he always carries with him, or like an old picture or like something like that. Um, and then the other one was the suspenders needed a bib pocket because you're out there, and same thing as in the warehouse with the headphones on. Even worse with ski pants, the cord wasn't long enough to go all the way down to the bottom of our sagged pants pockets that were like at our shin probably at that point, just like so far down. So we needed something to hold our phone that was a little bit higher. And I was like, well, we built suspenders and they've got all these loops. We started building bib pockets. Both Jeff and I started building bib pockets, and Jeff's were totally different than mine. And I remember him sending me his, and something just clicked that night when I got them. And I was like, I need to build a wallet on the front of this and put a necklace on it so I can just take it off my suspenders and go to the bar with it. So the night before going, like we were leaving at whatever, 5 or 6 in the morning to go to Tahoe the next day. And classically, I'm up till 2:30 or 3 in the morning, like putting this ghetto thing together that's going to hold my phone and my wallet. And that was the traveler's trunk. So I'm also like really dude oriented at that point in time. And there was like this very awkward thing, like, oh man, I just built a purse and now I've got to wear it. And I can just so much remember like walking into like a gas station with this thing around my neck, being like pretty embarrassed, like, all right, I'm gonna walk in there with this thing on. I can't really believe I'm doing this. And it sounds absurd today, but in 2012, totally different scenario 10 years ago, I think. And maybe not to you guys, but I'm 35, so it's definitely
Yeah, well,
interesting.
I'm just used to shoving stuff in my pockets. I think I would still be like, I would just be like, do I even need this thing? I just shove everything
Well,
right in my pants.
totally, totally. Well, wait till you get not your stuff in your pants. It's just so nice, dude, to have free pockets. It's crazy. But besides that, it's just like it's just very felt feminine at the time for a
Totally.
dude to carry a purse. And so yeah, there was that. And then I was going to the invitational and got there, and it's like a stacked lineup. I mean, it's it's Tanner, it's Rory Silva, it's Candide, dude. It's like crazy people.
Where was the invitational? I'm sorry if you already mentioned it.
It was in Tahoe. It was
Okay,
at
yeah.
I don't know, South Lake.
Okay.
I'm like totally spacing the name of the resort. But it was so Sierra at Tahoe, I think.
Yeah, that's a mountain out there. I don't know if that's the one, but that's out
I think
there.
that was the one. That was so damn cool. So here I am, and I know Tanner and a few of the people, Henrik and Phil, those guys, and my brother's there and whatnot. But other than that, I didn't really like know everyone. I'm meeting the legends, dude, and it was mind blowing. But here I am, and I'm so embarrassed because I'm like about to walk in with this purse on, and kind of like hiding it. And we wore it like straight over, we wore it like this. So it wasn't like, didn't feel like a side bag across the body as much, but still it was one. And I just remember like cruising into a room and like everyone kind of like looking at me and Tanner being like, that is sick. And everyone thought it was sick. And I was like, just totally like blown away by it. And yeah, so that was like, that's the story of the traveler's trunk, really, is that. And that was the first week I ever used it. And yeah, so then from then on, we obviously had to build on it. It was like a one night build prototype, not lots of thought put into it, but it held my phone and it held my cards and my cash. And that was all we really needed at the time. But since then, we just added a few more things, a couple pockets, a little sunglasses loop, and now it's like tip top. We might have to do another remake in the future since the times have changed a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really handy thing. And basically back to what you said, it's like, dude, to not have stuff in your pockets and to not have that bulge. And I went from wearing huge baggy pants to not as baggy anymore. So just to not have all that crap and not have to like dig through my pocket to find the one thing, or when I'm pulling my keys out, all this other stuff doesn't come out. It's just really nice. And then the nicest part is just being like, take it off and you're just empty. And it feels really, really nice. Feels great driving. You're not all clogged and I don't know. Something
Yeah.
about it. So it is like a dangly thing. And I understand that that's like kind of annoying. It's like a gaudy thing, but it is just so nice to take off. And for people who lose their wallets all the time, it's like the game changer because you just don't really lose it. It's just on you.
Yeah. That's sick. I mean, if we keep going down this road, it's going to be like women's pants where they don't even make pockets.
Yeah, no, exactly, dude. No pockets, no problem. Like it's crazy. Yeah. And who knows where everything's going, Maybe men will just be all wearing dresses in the next 10 years or something. I don't know, but it's crazy. But I'll tell you what, it is one of the handiest things, and there's super small niche things like going through the airport security, and that feeling of when you're like kind of being like rushed to like grab all your shit out of the bin after getting through it. It's insane, dude. You're like shoes on the ground, slip your feet in, throw the thing around your neck, backpack on, and you're out of there, and not like stuffing change and receipts and all this shit that's just loose in the bottom of the bin back into your pockets. And that right then, I'm like, women are so smart for having purses. Like this must be so nice, you
Yeah.
know?
It's kind of like, I don't know, like on like a video shoot, you have the chesty with like the walkie-talkie right here. I've always thought that would be so useful in everyday life. Like, we'll just have a walkie in everyday life. But yeah, I'm gonna have to get my hands on one of these things.
Dude, I think, yeah, and watch out, there might be something like that lined up here for the future coming
Dude,
out of our way. And I think that, dude, that's exactly it. So one of our whole things is to be very lifestyle oriented, and there's so many awesome things that are just so damn technical and professional that if you can like morph that into being more of like a daily driver type scenario or a casual thing, for instance, like, oh, it's really exciting. Actually, we just got our camera straps are on B&H Photo. They just made it up on B&H the other day, which is insane. That's like our biggest platform ever. Super cool. But if you go into B&H and you type in camera straps, everything is just so techy, dude. And it's like either very professional or like almost military style, and there's nothing too casual about anything on there. So I really think that's where we have this awesome market and gap in a market right now, is to like bring those type of things, the radio harness, in as something casual and not something that's like super gaudy. And then the fun part is too is, you know, you have all the hip hop stars and whatnot. They're repping the gaudy stuff, which is really cool. And you're all like, oh, that could be cool, but I'm not gonna wear like something like that. But if
Like a
you can make it
bulletproof vest in everyday life. Yeah.
right, but if you could make it so it doesn't feel like it's bulletproof vest, but it's got the functionality of what they're going for and the style too, like yeah, it's so wild. But I mean, for instance, this photographer came in here not too long ago and he's like, the only good things that work for me are military style bulletproof vests and all those things. And he's like, but I hate showing up as a photographer looking like an intimidating military guy. Literally, it could be like almost a change of fabrics and like you're good on those things, you know?
Yeah. Damn.
So that's kind of like my push, and it's kind of hard for people to see because um we're so involved in like a technical life, and like everything you get, like your skis are like they've got this technology in them and this technology, and it's like we've got not even technology. We don't even have any technology. It's like that's a zipper and Velcro, but it works so damn good, you know?
Yeah. Damn.
So,
All right, so the traveler trunk really changed everything for the company, it seems like.
full change, man. I mean, we went from being something that was under your jacket and like hidden and really worked well, but it was also specifically for a real defined niche, to the traveler's trunk, which as soon as you take that thing off the suspenders, you know, they had the loop on the back and they still actually do. That's to like loop onto your suspenders, you know? But it's like you take this off and wear it around, and next thing you know is like the skier dudes' girlfriends or the skier girls were like hyped on it. And the dudes were hyped on it too because it doesn't feel like a purse. It feels like you got your bling on or something, you know, like your chains on.
Yeah, throw
And
some pins on that and actually get it sparkling. Yeah.
yeah, word, man. So that was really huge. And then not like it took off by any means, but for us, it's just kind of crazy to think because it went like the yoga scene kind of started picking it up a little bit. And now it's like thinking about the minimalist in life. Who is that? It's not just dudes, it's not just women. It's like, yeah, there's so many different venues of people that really love these things. And so, yeah, it was a product that could reach the masses from a niche, which I think is like the coolest thing. And that's how the best things, I think, start, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, and so I remember talking to Jeff. A big part of his philosophy was he wanted stuff to be built in America. What were your thoughts on all of that? Because he was from a very like former industrial town,
Yeah.
Pittsfield, Mass. So how did that like? What did you think of that whole thing?
Yeah, that's just like an interesting thing when it comes to partnerships, I think. And Jeff and I discussed that a few times throughout our scenario. Um, I just didn't really care personally. I had I have opinions on it. I I love it. I try to support American made, but what I was trying to build wasn't necessarily that. But he was pretty strong on it. And like if he's my partner, dude, like whatever your top 5 things that you're going to be strong on, I'm down with them, and you better be down with the top 5 things that I'm strong on. So I was trying to build a brand that could go huge. That's my whole mentality. And so that was something that he had to work with. You know, I think he was like a little bit more in the crafter side of things. And I knew that's how it had to start, was we had to make our own stuff. But I was not hung up on made in US, but he was, and that's awesome. And we've discussed that. You know, I think that's really cool, and it's something to be super proud of. There's just so many things about it. The other side is like, can we build this business to be as massive as, I don't know, a Billabong or something someday by being made in the US? And yeah, I think we can. You know what I mean? I think there's a way to do that. So that was just us like giving and taking for each other. So yeah, when we split, that was like one thing that for me, we were sourcing all of our fabrics. We're all from China. All of our everything was from China pretty much already. And then we are just paying someone a lot of money down the street to put together and then paying a lot of money to get it shipped. And it's like, it just didn't make that much sense to me. And if it makes sense, I'll do it. I mean, I don't know if you can see, but it's like this hat up here, it's got a American flag on it. It's like, where's my, there. That's got American flag on it. So it's like, if there's something that works and it makes sense, I am like 10 times about going to the local, to the US made, to the whatever. But I mean, when it comes to textiles, dude, you can't get shit done in the US with textiles. When it comes to work, period, like, we don't want to work here, man. Everyone's trying to make as much money as they can off of each little thing, and trying to have a nice life, which I'm trying to do too. But understanding that there isn't really like the workforce here, and everyone's trying to get lots of money for lots of profit margin for each thing, versus, you know, in China or in any manufacturing place outside the US, I guess, they're making minimum profit and cranking a ton of product out. And like, I don't know, to me, that's just like makes sense in terms of business. And here, yeah, there's just so much to pay for, I guess. There's so much overhead in the US. And yeah, not a lot of options. And then to, on top of it, add to it, it's like, I buy the logos from that company over there. I buy the Velcro from this company over there. I buy the fabric from that company over there, get it all shipped to me. Then I got to like break it all down, then ship it to the manufacturer. You know what I mean? And it's just this whole crazy process where what I want to do is be like, this is my product. I've finished it. I've made it. I want it made out of this colored canvas. Can you do it? And now it's like, yeah, we got it. It's like, send me the file for this and it's done. It's a one-stop shop in that sense.
Yeah.
And so literally it relieved a whole job of mine in a way, because I wasn't having to handle like all these different aspects of sourcing every little niche thing that went into the product. It's just like, yeah, you're at a place big enough where they have it, you know?
Yeah. This is what I've wondered, like talking to the previous guys, and we haven't gone in depth on it, but how do you even source like an overseas manufacturer? Because it seems like they've got to, obviously they've got to speak English. So is there like a Craigslist of manufacturing?
Well, there is. It's called Alibaba, but
Okay, yeah,
it depends how you want to do it, you know? A lot of companies are pretty big and significant size, and kind of how you play that is you find someone who's going to be your liaison, I guess, is kind of the scenario. And that liaison usually lives in China, has connections with all the manufacturers. You give them your product and then they go and source it within their connections. You kind of have to have some capital to like handle that, because there's a bunch of overhead, because you're kind of stepping into higher quantities. And that is actually the scary part about that move too, is everything moving from US was very small quantities, and then to a bigger manufacturer had to be higher, but there was they cost less per unit, obviously. Not an even balance. Like our value, or what's the word I'm looking for, the cost of making things went up significantly high, but I got significantly more, but I couldn't get their quantities down, you know? So it just changes, like instead of making 50, you're making 250, and instead of your bill, now your bill is doubled, but you're getting way more than double, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of how you would do it as a normal scenario. For us, my like trick, basically, I did use Alibaba, but I didn't use it in how it's made to be used. But basically, the scenario is that if you use that, you can find the people who make your style of products already, and then you can work with them to see if they can make your design. So most everything on Alibaba is already like designed, made, or being made, or whatever, and you're putting your logo on it, and that's it. Like you choose a color, and that's it, right? But for me, I was like, all right, really need to have my own design. And yeah, so I was actually talking with my buddy Chuck at Pit Viper, and he's like, bro, just go on Alibaba, find the people who are already making the similar thing, send them a prototype and see what they price you at, because they are a legit manufacturer. Now, the problem with that is there is a language barrier because now I'm typing to somebody who has terrible English, and I also have no Chinese like language in me at all. So there's a tough language barrier there, but it's one of like the things that I have to do to kind of make this thing go. And I think it's one of the things I have to do to step into that next level. Um, and Treefort also just comes from a place of no investment, if that makes sense too. So like we never like built a business plan, gave it to a bank, tried to get a business loan. We haven't done any of that. We have had like a few friends or family like cover a run to get us going or something like that, but never have we had like, we're going to give you 25% of the business for 100 grand or something like that. You know what I mean? There's never been anything like that. So we're building this all on our own and all from the $20 basically where it started. And yeah, so it gets really hard when you start to bring in like big numbers and all that stuff. It's hard to have all the things that you want, I guess. So I have to like really focus on organizing how my drops are going to come and when they can come and how many like colorways they're going to be and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Oregon? And then how did you split? How did you and Jeff end up going your own separate ways? I don't know if those two stories are tied to each other or what.
Yeah. Well, basically, roommate style, Tanner and I ended up like kind of getting into a little bit of a meeting of minds, and it was really actually at a perfect timing where I was like, dude, I don't want to like lose our friendship, and he didn't either. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna find a new spot and move out of the house, and we'll just be homies. And it actually worked out super amazing because at that time Jeff had broken his femur up here at Hood. He had two roommates in his house, but one of them was gone for the summer. Another one had just moved out or something like that. So I ended up moving to Jeff's house for 3 months. Like there was an open room for 3 months was basically the scenario. Jeff needed help, I thought at least. And I mean, he didn't need help, but dude was laid up with a broken femur. Like it was a bad break and he couldn't do too much. So I just remember like moving there and like making dinner for us every night type of thing. And I fell in love with Oregon and the spot. And like he had rented out of that house like a little office in the house, and that's where Treefort was. And then I moved there and kind of got like into the place and wasn't going to go back to Salt Lake. The business was already there. I was like, I'm going to be here. I ended up kind of being homeless after that 3 months, but I did really cool things in that time. I went and worked on the herb farm, like a big one in Cali for my first time, which was cool to make a little bit of money. And because I made that money, I ended up getting to be Ahmet's filmer for a year that winter, and we filmed the Flip the Script. I don't know if you've seen Flip the Script 1, 2, and 3, but I filmed that whole thing and traveled all around with him on that. So that kind of like, I was based out of Oregon, but I didn't have a house. I was just like coming back and like sleeping on Jeff's couch, and doing that type of thing. And then ended up getting a room at my friend's house, like right down the road. So I could walk to Treefort. I didn't have a car. Like it was just like that whole thing got going on the Treefort scenario. And it just grew. We ended up taking over the garage, and then ended up the people over the years, the people who owned the house that was being rented for Treefort and Jeff they wanted to sell their house. So we all had to move and we split up, which, you know, put Treefort into this office that I'm in here. We're in like the Thriftway shopping plaza up here in Welch's in Mount Hood. Um, yeah, and it just kind of like it split us all up, and just kind of our graphic designer moved to Portland, and he's still our graphic designer. He has been since day one. He like made the logo with us, which is super cool. From Vermont, dude, now lives out here. Um, yeah, so all these moves just started happening. Jeff and I have just like always worked another job too. So Treefort's been like its own little self-sufficient thing. It might look a little bit bigger to people because, you know, we worked and paid our own bills. We weren't like pulling from Treefort on it. So that was like kind of a neat scenario. And yeah, just built to a point where I think over the years, Jeff and I's directions like split a little bit more in the of what I said in the beginning of he wanted to be more crafty, I think, style and hands-on and US made. And I wanted to be more like, we can be Nike, man. Like, let's make this thing big. And also at that time, we had just been working for ourselves and the brand. So we probably were putting in close to 40 hours a week each year, but we also had another job over there, you know? And it just gets really exhausting, man. And I honestly feel for him because at that time, I don't think it was just that our mindsets were different. It was that we weren't making money off of this thing, and we had been doing it for 8 years, you know? And how long do you like keep putting yourself and all of yourself into this thing? It wasn't just like a, hey, I want to meet up the Treefort office and sew some things. It was like we were in, you know, and we are in still, but it's like definitely a different feel to work your ass off for something that you've never really received anything out of. And yeah, do you have faith in each other? Where is it going? What are we actually doing? Are we holding each other back? Like, we talked about that all the time. We're like, whoo, Jeff, you saved me there because you held me back on doing this. You know what I mean? And if we would have done that, it would have been bad. And vice versa. But at the same time, how many things do you hold back from each other when just like make the damn mistake? You know what I mean? So yeah, there's just a bunch of interesting scenarios. And so in that whole process, you probably found out that Jeff was doing like the leather logos for us, which was awesome, right? We like tried to source leather logos, couldn't find good ones. He's like, I'm gonna make them. Said perfect. And then in that, he started getting into leather crafting. So that was another maybe a little bit of a pull. He's getting into leather crafting. And as he's getting into it, from the Treefort side, I was doing accounting and bookkeeping. So I was like, man, we're like back to the same thing as before. It's like we're buying dyes from over here, tools from this guy, leather from that guy, and all these things were coming into the accounting. That was just a mess and annoying to deal with. And I was like, hey, what if you start your own business that's a leather business? All you have to do then is just invoice Treefort for the whatever 500 logos that you're making. How nice is that going to be for me? And then I didn't want like, I mean, I'll probably do it someday, but I didn't want like leather dog leashes and dog collars and like biker wallets to be Treefort. I just didn't feel like it really fit at all. So I think that was like a mindset where I'm like, sweet, now you can do this all under your own little like side thing, and it doesn't need to affect Treefort. I thought it was awesome, and it turns out it is awesome because it kind of kickstarted him into doing his whole thing. He had all the tools, had all the stuff, and when he decided that he was over it, you know, I was just like, all right. Part of the thing was that he could keep all the leather stuff. I'm not going to use it. You know what I mean? And it's like, he's did so much to help this business grow that I couldn't pay him nearly what he had put in. You know what I mean? There's no way. The business wasn't worth it. So it's like that wasn't going to happen. So if there's something like that that we could do for him, that Treefort could do for him, it's not even me at that point. It's like literally like, dude, if we think of Treefort as its own identity, it's like, thank you for being a dad for so long. Like, this is the least we can do, is give you this stuff. So um yeah, so he decided that he was over it, and I had to just find a way to get some money because he needed something to leave with, you know. Otherwise it would make it bad because we were 50-50 in the business, which means no one can make a decision. Learn that right now, and everybody who's listening, I hope you hear that. Go into business with someone at least 51%, 49%. Don't even be afraid if you're the 49%, if you have a little bit of trust in the person who's the 51. Like, someone needs to be a decision maker in the end, because it almost doesn't matter which way it goes sometimes. It's like, as long as the decision's made, we're not in floaty limbo, you know?
Yeah. And
Um,
sometimes you'd rather even be the 49 because you get the other person has the responsibility of making the decision.
100%. And then when it comes to this, it's like, Jeff's like, I want to sell the business. And I'm like, well, I don't, so you can't.
Hmm.
And how that sucks, And it sucked for me too, because I didn't want to do that, but I had to. I'm like, this is my dream and my life and my love and like all these things. So no, I'm not selling it to anybody. And now he's screwed, right? Now, if he actually wants to leave, he almost has to take nothing. And that's a terrible way of going about it. So yeah, we just did some math and calculated what we thought the business was worth based on its profitability. And then I had to go find some money. And luckily, I have some amazing family who was able to help me out with that a little bit. And yeah, and we were just able to make it really clean. Like, we had our lawyer help us out, and we're still great friends. It's not like we hang out all the time. The bummer is that we just ended up splitting this business. So he had a ton more work to do now, and I had a ton more work to do now. And we really didn't get to hang out that much once the split. But we had a buddy hit us up, and we went to his wedding a little while ago, and he's like, is it cool if I invite both of you guys? And I'm like, put us at the same table, and he was like really stoked, because that's really hard for a business to break at all, no matter if it's good, bad, like for it to come out that clean. And I know there was some animosity probably between both of us, but for it to come out that clean was just like pretty incredible. And to still have him as a friend is pretty incredible. We went through college and so much together. So yeah, it's really cool now,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. I mean, this sounds like as clean as it could be. Like, just because you guys had different visions for the future doesn't mean that's a bad thing. I mean, you did the right thing in the end with just buying him out when, I mean, technically you didn't even need to.
Right. I know, it's really weird, man, because when I talk to like my business friends, they're like, oh, you're in the best position ever. And I'm like, yeah, but not really,
Yeah,
because
exactly. Because you want to keep
I
him
have
as
a
a friend.
yeah, and I have a conscience and like all this stuff. It's not just about, and the business wasn't worth that much. It's not like you know what I mean? It's not like it's worth tons and tons of money. So we're not, yeah, we're fighting. You would be fighting over pennies and dimes. And like at that point in time, I didn't want to see anyone else run my business either. I wanted it to die or me run it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about the 50-50. It's like, dude, I'll just kill it then. Like, it can just die. Like, I'll take half the inventory, you take half the inventory. It's done, you know?
Yeah.
And
So
then
when did you guys split ways? How long ago was that? Or just like just split companies basically?
yeah, like 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
since then, what have like once you had full control, like was there like any first order of business you wanted to do, or was it just continuing to do what you were already doing?
Yeah, I really wanted to make some changes. I knew I needed to like slim down our line to go to a bigger manufacturing. I also there was a bunch of stuff that Jeff put a lot of effort into that I didn't really feel like I wanted to keep from him in a way. So, there was like a fingerboard surfboard for out the window of the car. And that was like something that he put in a lot of time and effort into. And it's a Treefort thing. So it's like, I do want that back someday, but I've really been like, all right, I have to save some money and like allocate funds differently. Like that's one of the first things that it's just like, boom, that's off the table. He can have that until like eventually I'll bring it back someday. You know what I mean? But um, there was things like that. So I tried to take some things off the plate that was already there, that I didn't think was going to move us in the direction of the future, as well as give him some of his things back. We had leather wallets, we had, a whole bunch of stuff like that that really came from him. And I could have kept it going by sending his wallet away and getting it remade or something, but or having him make it. But this is really like, let's separate these things and do our own thing.
And just simplify, yeah.
Yeah. So I really wanted to focus on our bags. And I think that's the thing that's going to move us forward the most. The bummer is the hard part about it is that it like really slows us down because it kind of pulls us a little bit more from skiing and snowboarding when you're really focusing on that. And that's what our following is. And that's what we could make money off of if we pushed suspenders and or anything skiing snowboarding related. But I just really think there's a future in like unisex bags, so I really like slimmed down to focus on that. And I figured if I'm marketing a more similar thing over and over, it really starts to click with people. And if we're marketing this huge array of stuff, it's like, what really are we? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it does make sense. Like Dark Forest, Jeff's new company, is leather stuff, and when
Right.
I think of you guys, Treefort, I think of suspenders and bags.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
so it's
that's like
exactly what you're going for.
definitely what I'm going for. And now I'm like, the more we can build this thing and get it together, it's like the more opportunity I have to get into like maybe some big stores, like I'm like, we're bags and we're unisex and we're rugged, and it's not like a Louis Vuitton and it's not like a Herschel. And it's like, damn, maybe this thing could go into Zoomies. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah,
literally, we could be on that type of level at some point. So that's like my direction is just to make stuff that is, I really think about from our niche to the rest of the world.
totally. And yeah, so I usually wrap up the non-viewer questions portion with like, what's your vision of for the future for the brand?
The vision for the future is, my vision for the future is just more to create unique looking and feeling items that really hit a broad mentality in the outdoors space. So I know that's like a broad statement, but I'm always just creating weird things, that I see that we're having problems with, or not having these things that could fix problems. So when I'm camping or when I'm hiking or when I'm friggin' working construction, I'm like seeing stuff that I'm like, oh, that could be this or that could be this, and building things. And then also like interrelating them. So I see Treefort being very accessories oriented, but I also see in like the next 5 years, some really cool like clothing stuff coming out and apparel stuff coming out that I don't think people have really like thought of or seen before. So I'm really excited about that because I've never considered myself like a designer in that sense or whatnot, but I've been playing with some things that I've kind of wanted for myself, and the feedback's been pretty incredible. So we'll see what happens with that. But um, I just want to continue to have a new take on things that already exist. So whether that's a backpack, um, a thing in your car for organization and travel, um, Yeah, weird stuff, man. I see weird stuff all the time, and I try not to give it away to everybody.
Yeah,
But
of course.
we
Yeah,
got some funky things coming for sure. But it's a mix between apparel and like kind of the bag and accessories.
yeah. Sick. Well, I feel like we could talk about stories all day and just keep
Yeah.
going down these different like various rabbit holes in like your relationship with all these guys from the past now. But let's uh let's do the viewer questions because we got some interesting ones and some of these guys from the past come back up.
Oh boy.
Uh so first one, it's the one we have every week now. What's your hot take?
In skiing, it gets really interesting. In skiing, it's just like uh style over performance, probably. And that's probably half the people agree with me and half the people say performance first, you know what I mean? But it's like I have had the hardest time, man, watching the competition scene because it scares me, man. It's like these people are going so hard, and like the smallest change could lead to crazy injury, you know? And it's like, so to me, I don't like the scariness of it. I love the fluidity of it, you know? And I love when like dudes get their like last run in competition and they've already won, and Jossie can just do zero spins and 180s. Like, I'm like, yes, you know? So obviously in competition, you kind of have to mix those, but perfect example is like Henrik's whole thing with his nose butter triple in the Olympics was just like, I'm gonna go and do the most proper one I can do. And that was just like really nice to see because he doesn't look scared in it. I don't feel scared for him in it. And yeah, so that's probably my biggest hot takes is like style over performance, and stop scaring yourself and the people, man. Holy cow. It's like I'd literally rather watch girls big air sometimes because it's like it just looks like I want to see her do a dub 10 over the same jump. These guys are doing like 21. Alex Hall's doing 2160 on, like, big up Alex Hall for sure, but I'd rather see a dub 10. You know?
Yeah. All right. He did pretty good for somebody that didn't know what it was at first.
Perfect.
All right, Wumbo skis. Does anyone rep the suspenders harder than Tofa Loaf?
Tofa Loaf is the biggest repper, and to make it really fun, he is walking distance right down the street. He lives right here. I could like probably hit his window with a stone from here. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So is that how he got linked up on the program? You guys are basically just neighbors.
Yeah, basically just neighbors, and he just is this big supporter, and I think it just like naturally fell into place. He Yeah, I don't know if there's I'm trying to think, is there anyone bigger, you know? It's like because he's just always got him on the outside. He's always tagging. He's like, yeah, he's just a genuine human, and it's just a really cool scenario. There was like a whole scene for a while where a bunch of the dudes, I feel like the bunch all kind of repped him on the outside. There was like a little bit of a scene, but he's the only one who's held it down.
Yeah.
It's
Sick.
really cool.
All right. The skin eats.
Oh, sick. Ian.
Yeah. How does one get sponsored? Any new ideas or products for Treefort in the future? And then he also wanted to add that it was a great meet and greet this spring with you.
Yeah, that kid's so nice, man. It's so cool to like meet these people who we've had like either relationships or connections with through the internet and Instagram, and people supporting and tagging. And yeah, there isn't really a way to get sponsored because we don't have a team. We don't have anything like that. I really hope that Treefort can grow enough in the future to truly make enough of an income to like really give back to skiing. You know, that's like probably my biggest mission in this whole thing is to like actually support skiing in a bigger support people in skiing in a bigger way than we do. Right now, Treefort is just kind of like a platform for all people, really. So we just really like to put it out there to the people. And if you support us, we support you back. Um, we don't have an ambassador program. I don't know. There's all these things that just seem so corny think one of my, you know what, hot take is pros aren't really pro. There's a good one. Like, these people who are sponsored, they're not getting like really paid. They're not like living their life. It's like almost or they're not getting paid to live their life. It's almost like a thing that you can that the company can boast about themselves for, and that the people can be like, this company recognizes me, but they're not getting like paid for the risk that they're doing. And
Yeah.
that kind of bothers me. So I've never wanted to like sponsor people because I think people take it out of context from the viewer perspective. Now, if you want to put your logo in the beginning, our logo in the beginning of your edit, I would love to send that to you. Like that shit fires me up because I'm trying to create community involvement and everybody support everybody, just like high tide rises all boats, like you said earlier, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's really cool, man. This spring's been like really fun. People like Dasha Gangsta Russia came through, you know, and she's just like, I have my camera. Can we go take photos? And it was like not for anything other than she wants to contribute, but also she gets her photography seen at a different level or to different people on my account. And it's been crazy actually how many photographers have literally come from deciding they want to be a photographer to us posting them their photos to them getting paid by real brands as photographer because they're seen and have credibility now, you know?
Yeah. So
So I really like being that platform.
yeah. So to go back to your hot take because it's so good, the second one. So you think that most pro, quote unquote, pro skiers are just cosplaying as pros? They're not actually like because pro is really your skiing supports your life basically.
Right. And that's what I want people to understand. Like, what is pro? You know, it means professional. Like, it's like if I'm pro anything, I'm like professional carpenter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, yeah. So,
Like a professional photographer, exactly like their photography pays for their life.
yeah.
Videographer, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most people are just being marketed and supported by these companies. They're not even like on an ambassador level, but the company's like, we'd like to offer you a sponsorship. And it's like, that is cool, but a sponsorship doesn't mean you're pro. Like, I love how in skateboarding, it's like, if you have a pro deck, you're a pro. If you have a pro shoe, you're a pro. Like, that's it. That's like the thing. That's like, it's like very definitive. You know what I mean? So I think that's like a huge scenario. And I think it tricks kids into wanting to be pro. And then when they get it, it's not what they think it is, and they're not really getting supported. Like, sick to get free skis. Like, it's the nicest thing ever, but you're not pro at that point in time.
You're
And
just sponsored.
and I've literally, you know, grown up with Brady, and kids would be like, "You're my favorite pro skier," and it's like, haven't got a dime off of it. You know, he's like, "I work at the retail store over here." You
Well,
know,
that's the other thing about it. Like, I mean, this could warrant its own episode, but like, if you're recognizable, like if you're recognizable to kids, like your younger brother, for example, and they look up to him and they idolize him, and they're gonna go their whole life saying, "Oh, I loved Brady when I was growing up." That's part of being a pro skier, you know?
it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really weird. I loved how you interviewed the Vishnu guy, and he was talking about like what to do to like get sponsored, and I was like, oh, this dude is awesome. He's
Yeah.
like, just go ski in the streets, and it's like, yeah, for me, I'm like, people are like, how do I get sponsored? I'm like, well, we just love when people support our brand. So I'm like, do you have any products? Do you already use our stuff? Do you know it? Do you love it? You
Yeah.
know? Or what are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to get money, or are you trying to get like on the team just so your name's on a website or something? Like, I don't know, but I feel like there's a big falsity in how people interpret those things. And so I don't really want to be part of the business game that plays into that, because I just seen it firsthand. Like, literally all the 4x9 guys like hardly got any money, you know?
Yeah. Except for Tom.
Yeah, and they all were considered like pro skiers because everyone watched them in movies. It's like, if you're in a movie, you're a pro skier. It's like, no, you're not a pro skier. You just go skiing.
Yeah.
someone holds a
That is
camera.
so interesting. Maybe we'll put a panel together, and you could be on that panel, and everyone will just duke it out about what the definition is.
Yeah, I wonder because everyone's got a different one, that's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be sick, actually. All right, we're keeping that in the back of my mind.
All right, sick.
All right, spaghetti sauce. What keeps KP motivated? The man is an inspiration. Do you go by KP?
I go by whatever people call me. I mean, my name's Kevin, and a lot like from since Salt Lake days, everyone calls me KP, and you can't make up your own nickname. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's a
yeah, I
solid.
just go by whatever calls me. It's really funny, man, because over the years I got all these different names, and they almost like relate to like time frames and whatnot. And yeah, so you can be like, oh, that's someone from Salt Lake, probably if they're calling me KP. You know?
Dude, same thing with Nathaniel Dickey Stiza. He's known by
No.
Nathaniel back in the Midwest, and then Dickey out in Salt Lake. So
Nice, nice. And then you probably got some people that call you Nate or something, and you're like, oh, there's that one guy.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, exactly. So I just always, my friends will be like, this is KP, and I'm like, hi, I'm Kevin. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
So that's kind of my scenario with that.
yeah.
But
So back to the question, what keeps you motivated?
what keeps me motivated is my visions, probably. I just see so many weird things and I like creating them. Um, yeah, that's probably the biggest scenario. I'd say connections with people. Everything just plays into everything so much. But
It's
I
a
don't
loaded
know.
question for
I'm
sure.
like
Yeah.
literally one of the most motivated people in the game. So it's like I don't know what really keeps me motivated, but um
Well, you've been
yeah,
motivated for so long. It's just like a muscle that you keep working, and then it becomes second nature. Yeah.
I think the possibility of the future is what keeps me most motivated. I think like I have all these ideas that I want to design and I have to like do my work to get to those ideas. And so the ideas are what motivates me to get my work done. So then I'm like, all right, sweet. Now I can make this thing that I've been thinking about. And I don't draw like how we started Treefort. I make it on a sewing machine first. So it like goes from my mind to a sewing machine, never like a drawing. So I have all these like hack job ideas that I create on a sewing machine. And it's basically just to hold the idea for me. So I don't have to keep it in my head. I can just put it in a bin for a while and come back to it. But that's
Yeah.
probably like the most motivation.
Yeah. That totally makes me think of the Steve Jobs interview. I don't know if you've seen it, but he said like one of his biggest revelations, and it's way better visualized, so you'll be able to see it, but they won't be able to hear it. It's like you take the world, and if you could push something, and on the other end something will come out. So he was basically saying like you have a tangible impact on what exists. So he said that was like a huge motivator for him, and it seems like you're kind of along those same lines.
Dude, it's definitely that. Like, how can I add and help and all those things to the world? And I mean, it's not like these bags do like something that incredible or new or something like that, but it it does help in so many ways with so many different people's lifestyles, and then thinking about how it's going to help in the future and how it's helped me and how I've been able to like inspire a bunch of people and how I really hope in the future to do that even more, like back to what I said, coming from learning disabilities and not being good in school and making it through. And then same thing, obviously in college, um, to be able to have this and show that you can do this without being a straight A student, without kind of following like the norms a little bit. That's just really like probably my biggest pushes is just to like help the world and like lighten things up a little bit with people, because it's a heavy place nowadays.
Yeah. I think like doing these business episodes, what I love most is like showing people that all these things that people look up to, whether it's like an athlete or a brand, dude, it's just regular people that are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. I guess with the
Regular.
athletes, there's some natural talent playing in as well, but like with a business like your own, it was just two normal dudes that are like, yeah, let's do a thing, and then we'll change, and then the world will change because of this thing that we created.
Right. And that's like the most inspiring part about everyone who's skiing, dude, is like I literally seen all my friends like create businesses off of themselves and their own motivation, you know? So it's like, it's AJ deciding that he wants to go film. It's Tom deciding that he wants to go ski, and them getting together and deciding they're going to go build something, put this effort into something that they don't know if it's going to work out. And how many times does that happen? And like you end up with a movie, and yeah, a few things don't work out or whatever, but now you can have an impact. And it's just like super freaking cool, man.
Yeah, or like just AJ and Andrew being like, yeah, we're 4x9, and then they create something out of nothing, and now it's something that kids look up to, that I looked up to growing up for sure.
Yeah, man, it's the coolest thing to me. I love that. So yeah,
Yeah, for
that's the
sure.
motivation probably.
All right, Inspired Media TV. What
All
do you
right.
love most about skiing?
The feeling. It's crazy. So we'll this is like kind of a newish one maybe for me, but like 3 years ago I blew my knee and I don't have health insurance. I don't have any of that shit. So I have not got my knee fixed. I just have a wobbly knee. But to like a year and a half after it happened, I had a friend give me a ticket to go skiing, and I hadn't skied in a year and a half, you know. And I had another friend gave me a knee brace, and it fit perfect. And I put that thing on, and I went skiing for a day, dude. And holy cow, that feeling of just like standing on these things and knowing how to like work them, it's really different coming back from an injury, right? Because you're not at your prime game, but I know how they work. So it's like I know I could just like sit on them and let them steer themselves and like turn them. And it was almost like this whole type of skiing that I hadn't felt in a long time, because I'm always like ripping my tails and slashing or popping or doing whatever. But just to like ski how the ski skis and let it go down the hill was just like the most incredible feeling. And having not done that in a year and a half or whatever's time really just put that into me. It's like it's the classic feeling that everyone says, man. It's that everything else goes away, you know, and you're just like really left with like here and now and what's in front of you. And to be perfectly honest, I'm so grateful about Treefort for that, because I found the same thing in designing. Like when I'm sewing and creating something from scratch, that like there's nothing else out. It's just like I'm so honed in and I'm either happy or frustrated, but it's like whatever, everything else is just gone. And it gives me the same feeling back that skiing was when I was like learning tricks. You know what I mean? It's just like, try this, doesn't work, seam rip it apart, try it again. And then next thing you know, you're like, I got these down, like let's go. And yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my, yeah, skiing can really teach you like so much about life. I did a when I was doing my master's, my final like my thesis was you had to identify a problem and propose a solution, and my whole paper was about making skiing more accessible. But at that macro level, like all the professors were like, well, why is skiing even important? So I had to think about all those things, like what it teaches
Right.
you and how like the lessons it could take you through life. So totally, it totally goes just off the mountain too. It extends everywhere.
It extends everywhere, dude. And like, yeah, it's you're totally right. And to be good at one thing is to be good at everything kind of scenario, right? It's like once you can hone in and like really see something, you can understand everything else. But it's like before skiing, I was like surface level with everything. Now you get into skiing and you're like, okay, I understand that there's this industry and how this industry works. That probably works kind of similarly in that industry. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're like understanding how all the world kind of works around you, but it was by understanding one thing. And
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's like a pretty cool scenario.
that's awesome. All right, last question. Scott asks, advice for people getting started.
Just start, because basically I was explaining this to my friend the other day who's starting a business, and we were just talking about how if you know what you're about to get into, you might be a little intimidated. But if you don't and you just start, the next thing that happens is you have a problem that you got to fix. And it's because you started. And now you're just fixing problems along the way just because you started. Like, you can't anticipate those problems, nothing of the sort. Like, just make one move forward and you're going to start having like things that you've got to chase down or fix. And those are the things that are like actually going to build you in the end. So it's it's the most intimidating part, but it's literally one step. And if you take one step, as you probably know from starting this, you get a little bit of positive energy back from like a direction, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna go here, and then oh, the audio quality isn't as good as I'd like it. So what do I, you know what I mean? And next thing you know, you're like totally in it, and it's a real thing. And all you need to do is just the first stitch, man.
Yeah, I like that. Just do it. That should be the Treefort
Yeah, steal
motto.
Nike, and we're just doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
we're
it's,
gonna
it's
do it.
it's like that. What is that clay? It's like that winter claymation movie. They have the whole song. It's just put one foot in front of the other. That's all. That's all you got to do.
Dude, it really, really is. And yeah, just and back to that too, it's like once you have one foot moving, it's simple physics, that if there's already momentum, it's easier to make it go faster once it's moving, but from stop, it's the hardest. So yeah, just one step. It can be the smallest step. And I do these things all the time, constantly. I'm always starting things. I'm always trying to make myself not start 20 businesses at a time, but I have some weird other things going, man. But I mean, for instance, inspired Eric Iberg and I, and like Tanner's involved too, but we're building an album actually right now, a reggae album where it's going to be all of our favorite artists. And it's really cool because we like contribute directly to these artists, and we're going to put them on as a new platform for people to hear these artists, you know. So it's kind of like going out to a new crowd that might not have never heard these guys. um and I just it's just like I love music, so I want to be involved in it. I don't just want to like take from it. I want to like do something with it and contribute it to it. And so that's one of the things on my side project. It's like, yeah, Eric and I are constantly like working with Jamaican reggae artists that we look up to, that we want to support, and we're making custom songs, kind of like Tanner used to do in his movies. You know, you'd hear like Tanner Hall shout outs in songs or whatever. And that means that it's really cool. That means that he owns that song. He bought that song from the artist, which instead of like paying for the rights, which is really cool, he like bought the song. So he has the rights, but it's like his, you know what I mean? So he directly contributed to that artist too. So it's been really neat during Black Lives Matter stuff and everything that's been going on with that, to teach people that it's not necessarily just about donating. It is if you don't have any connections to these communities, you know, but if you have communities, you can do way more to help them by working with them and involving everybody and putting everybody in the friggin' pot together, instead of being like, you're this and you're that, and we can't interact with you, you know? So, yeah, it's been really, really fun. So that's something to look forward to in the future. I don't know if we'll be allowed to mention that in this interview or not, but it's like really friggin' neat, dude. Like, and then like I've been doing stupid other dumb stuff. Like, I love filming, videography, all that stuff. And then I just ended up somehow filming a little matchbox car and trying to make it look real. And now it's just turned into this whole thing of RC car, uh, like trying to make little mini RC cars look really real. And it's
Yeah.
just stupid, dude, but it's like going
Yeah.
somewhere. I don't know. I'm
Well,
just always
actually,
starting.
I got another viewer question that I skipped over just because I thought he was joking around. Ankilla asked, "When are we getting Treefort RC cars?"
Yeah, dude, they're coming. So I'm not like in the RC community, and I don't really do the things that the RC community does, but I love this is really relatable to skiing. Actually, I love how they're miniature, and then I love finding places and things that weren't supposed to be a road or a mountain pass or something like that, and like being able to make it that. And that's the same feeling that I used to get like driving through a city and being like, oh, a city's now like urban handrails and you could jump over this fence and hit that thing. And so you just see everything different. And it's just this whole change of perspective of trying to film really, really small things. And yeah, eventually we'll have something like that, I think. But I've got some stickers on there. We got one rig that's sponsored by Pit Viper and Treefort. It's pretty funny.
Sick.
we'll,
All right. So
we'll see. It's stupid.
yeah, that is all I have. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Let's plug all your stuff so people know where to find you and keep up with Treefort.
Yeah, we are at Treefort Lifestyles on Instagram. We're at Treefort LS on like Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok. We got treefortlifestyles.com as our website. We've always got like little blogs popping up and trying to create new things all the time. So keep your eyes peeled, especially coming this fall. We got some goodies coming out.
Boom. There you have it. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate you having me.